Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I am delighted to bring you our guest today. Olivia Atkin is a podcaster, author, and successful entrepreneur. Her book, Achieving Success in Career Development, has inspired readers with her insightful perspectives and practical advice. As an entrepreneur, she has built her own successful business, inspiring others to follow in her footsteps. Olivia creatively carved a path for herself from athlete to managing sports teams, resulting in working with the New York Giants and the Frozen Four national champion Quinnipiac University hockey team. Join us as we hear her story of resilience and how she's built an incredible career for herself. She has countless degrees and certifications under her belt, including a Bachelor of Science in Business Management and a minor in Sports Studies from Quinnipiac, an MBA with a specialization in supply chain certification, and a certification for a Society of Human Resource Management. Oh my God, it goes on and on. I'm going to stop and just say, welcome to the show, Olivia. So happy you're here.
Thank you for having me. And I'm just going to give you kudos right off the bat for not getting tongue-tied with Quinnipiac and all the different wording. And you made it really well.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. So I know your story and why I wanted to have you on the show. But for our audience who hasn't met you, could you give a little bit about your background?
Yes. So my journey is one, as you touched upon with the theme of the show, very resilient. I was an athlete. I've seen all aspects of athletes, from leaving your sport due not your own reasoning and an injury in some sorts. When I was 9 years old, I was a professional swimmer. I was training for the Junior Olympics when I was diagnosed with epilepsy. Fast forward years to I'm in high school. I'm coaching diving, trying to help individuals learn how to swim. And I ended up setting the state record in diving and left that sport by choice. And managing athletes in high school, really understanding that, hey, people really gather information differently. And everyone's superpower and how they perceive those superpowers can look differently, and understanding the power of the pivot. And that's really how I grew into the setting of, when I got to Quinnipiac and being asked to be one of the managers, that transition too, because of my experiences in sports, managing 4 sports teams in high school, I was set up to.
Oh, wait, I want to just back up, because I want the audience to really understand, you were a super passionate, successful swimmer. You got diagnosed with epilepsy and your world stops as you know it. You go into diving, it's a little safer from medically speaking. However, you figure out that managing sports teams is something you could actually do in high school. I don't think a lot of people know that. And you took that to Quinnipiac, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, keep going.
And that was the thing, diving just happened because I watched other people dive and be in a pool. I never thought I'd be a diver.
Sure.
It was really because my sisters did gymnastics, and in the summer for kicks, they would go and dive off the board, and sure, they would join the team. But when I got to my high school years, I was kind of lost in how I want to stay within sports. How am I going to do this? And my elementary gym teacher actually moved to my high school my freshman year, and he was like, I'm going to be managing the wrestling team. You have all these skill sets. People listen to you. You take action. You dive in and problem solve right off the bat. I think you should do it. And it ended up very quickly that other sports teams, boys lacrosse, football, baseball, ended up all managing all their teams. And when I got to Quinnipiac, I understood sports and how a team really has to work together to get certain things like the stats, the game day stuff set up, all those little things you need that the players can't do because they're performing. Right. I can do and make sure, hey, you're meeting your academic requirements. You need help studying? I can do that. Oh, we're traveling this week and we have to tell all the teachers? Okay, all under control. And that led to Quinnipiac really going, hey, can you do this? And I ended up managing both their men's and women's ice hockey team. And I learned a lot through all those different experiences, which ended up leading to the opportunity to become the youngest intern to intern at the New York Football Giants, which I did between going from my sophomore year to my junior year of college. And I ended up staying on for 6 seasons and working with them for 6 seasons, building those relationships with athletes where, hey, I might not be playing football with you, or I had clients in the NBA and MLB, because I started managing clients through this experience. And I was like, I don't know what it's like to throw the football on the field, right? I don't know those pressures. I don't know those skill sets. But we have to show up in all these other environments. Mm-hmm. And we built relationships where we could trust. And I very much also know the feeling of, hey, what does happen once you get an injury on the court, the field, right? How that mentally shapes who you are and how you approach that as well.
So we have a lot of athletes on the show. We've got Olympians, a lot of professional athletes, and some And the reason I love having them on this show is because they demonstrate resilience that I think in business we need. And you took all this skill set and you, again, made a pivot because you didn't solely stay in sports. I know you still work with sports, but what did you turn your business into and how did you take yourself on that journey?
So for me, I always thought like leaving undergrad, I was going to be in sports forever. Yeah, we all pivot sometimes within our industries, but I was like, look what I've accomplished so far. We're going to keep going on this. Sure. I'm set. And then I just realized I really liked working in all different pieces with all my athletes and really working with a lot of departments within the New York Giants. And so I ended up going back to school and getting my MBA with the concentration in supply chain management. Coincidentally, I went back in fall of 2019. I did the 2-year program in 2 semesters. So I was leaving my MBA when COVID hit. Luckily for me and where I ended up pivoting, I went into supply chain at Lockheed Martin. But I really understood still the skill sets I learned from sports. Hey, we got to have a fast turnaround. How can we deliver at a high level without justifying things from an ethical standpoint? Mm-hmm. How can we communicate quickly the objectives of what needs to get done, right? And so I took that into that space and working with other individuals, especially the younger individuals coming in, of how can we fill the gap in the communication? What are the resources that need to be provided to you as you transition into this new space that you don't have that knowledge or skill set? And how can we set up those processes and procedures? And through that process, even though it was not my role, it shortly became my role because everyone was like, well, you're asking the question. There's no, these are where the gaps are here. Figure it out. And when I started my business, Achieving Success, and really launched it, it was based on let's pull the curtain back. My podcast, Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin, where we bring on individuals of all walks of life every single week, is to talk about what success means and looks like to them today in that journey. And part of that was because I've been in every industry and the same conversations continuously happen, just in different formats, right? Oh, I didn't think this role was really going to be like this. I thought I was going to get into this company, such a high performing company, and I was going to be set. Right. So when I started the podcast, it was just for the purpose of pulling back that curtain and let's be honest. And let's give others the tools so they can succeed and not go through some of the hurdles we've gone through. And if they are, hey, here's someone who's gone through it, who's living it, and you're not alone, because especially in today's day and age, there's so much of we have to hide what's going on with us. Or
there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, right? We've got this Instagram world. We've got this, people say, oh, you're doing so many speaking engagements. You're on so many articles. You're crushing it. Well, they don't know like how hard I'm fighting to get my clients, keep my clients, get more leads. Like all of that they don't see. So they don't see the little duck feet swimming under the water. They just see the lovely glide.
And it's the same thing. I use the analogy with my epilepsy, right? I had a rare form, so I started with grand mals, which are not the foaming at the mouth, because some of this stuff gets publicized for television ratings, right? And that's really, epilepsy is the most common neurological disease in the world. Right. However, it's the most untalked about disease, and what we really know about it, you see in movies, which isn't accurate. It's not. And so, you know, when I started, you can see if I was having a seizure. I'd be shaking. I, you know, maybe fall to the ground, maybe totally space out. You know, you could tell. As my seizures calmed and I went from those more grand mal to the acute where they're staring events, or you and I could be talking and I trained my body so well that you couldn't even know it. And so it turned into something where it was, hey, I have this battle going on with my inner self and struggles I have with education or memorizing things, or, you know, sometimes trying to find the word or the right word that you don't see by just looking at me. So let's also have the conversation of what that is also like, because a lot of the times if someone doesn't see it, they don't actually realize there are those moving pieces, like you said, under the water. And that goes back to business as well. If they don't see it in front of them and they're only seeing those A-list moments, a lot of people aren't going to then go, yeah, but I'm having internal struggle. I'm doing all these things so that when you see me on social media, you're getting what you're looking at.
You're getting my best. Yeah. So you wrote a book. So somewhere in this journey, you wrote a book. What's the book about?
So Achieving Success in Career Development is really giving individuals, no matter their background, the skill sets to go through career development. So no chapters more than 10 pages. It has 14 chapters. And it really is, hey, take it, use it as a workbook. You can be brand new into your career or 30 years in. And especially now, I'll use this as the example of mass layoffs happening. You know, the book covers everything from resumes and cover letters with templates to how to prep for that interview, how to build networking relationships, different certifications you could get depending on what industry you're in. And so it's for anyone that goes, hey, I need this skill set. I need to brush up on this. What's an easy way for me to observe the information? So every chapter goes into like, what is that about? Why is it important? What are the tips and tricks to it? And then for things like resumes and cover letters, here's a few different templates for where you might be in your life. Plug and chug it.
So for job seekers right now, it's a super volatile job market. And, you know, we already had the great layoff of 2023. I think there's more coming. What's your best advice for job seekers right now?
My best advice is think about what is your superpower and what you can do to hone that superpower that you're really good at. Is it communication? Is it organization? Is it the need to learn? As well as think about getting those different certifications and certificates. You know, when I went through my process of now I have certifications or degrees in every area, people were like, well, you're in sports. Why do you need an HR certification? You're managing athletes. You're not firing people, needing to know federal laws and this and that. Or you're not in project management. And I was like, you never know when you might pivot somewhere and you need to know this information. It also gave me the capability to have many different conversations with people and understand.
Well, and I also have to believe that getting a certification in HR management really helps you understand the job market. It helps you understand the process, the steps that someone is going to go through in an interview, and some of the common things that a prospective employee, whether you're an athlete or otherwise, is going to need to go through. So attention, visionary leaders, are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together. That kind of guidance is really valuable.
Oh, 100%. And I've been in rooms where I've literally pulled a manager aside, and not being the manager in the room or a higher up, and like, hey, just to let you know, HR wise, you're about to, by saying that and trying to implement this policy, you're actually breaking a federal law. Like, hey, just to tell you, like, we need to step this back, or this can become a real big issue within the company. And they're like, I didn't even know, because they don't have that HR training. No. And so there's those gaps there. But it is also a thing, and I'll use the example of Lockheed Martin. One of the reasons I got put into the role I was put into right off the bat of a master scheduler for all the helicopters we made was because I had that supply background and I was seeing a lot of different trends, but I also took the time. I had seen online that Tableau was a system that was starting to be used a lot in different companies. And they mentioned it once in passing in like a job description or something. And I went back and ended up getting the certificate. And then when I went for my interview, they brought it up as this new tool that's going to be rolling out. And they saw my resume. It's now on there. And I was like, yeah, do you know this is how it works? And this is how it works. And I was told months later, when I was on the team with high ups from all over the company working on Tableau integration, I was hired for my job because I had a skill set that no one else in the company knew about.
I think that's a really valuable point, Olivia. And I think when people are looking at job descriptions, I always recommend they create a pros and cons list of all the things they've ever loved to do and all the things they never want to do again, and really compare that job description and set up all the requirements on both sides. So you can really clearly see, okay, I like 6 things. I hate 14. This is not my job. Like, I don't think people really think about it that way. I think they're like, shiny penny, shiny penny. It's a job. It's going to pay me. I got to go. And I also think that people are used to a certain level of suffering. And I think that's becoming less and less. I think people are really demanding more from their leaders and asking for more from their companies. And companies are really starting to have to focus more on culture and teaching management. I don't call them soft skills. I call them power skills. But those skills are so, so vital. And so transition, I wanted to ask you, you've worked with a lot of coaches, you've worked with a lot of leaders. What are some of the best qualities you've noticed in leaders, be it a coach or a business manager, who got the best results?
Someone who's open to having the hard conversations. If you are willing to hear out an employee, whether they made a mistake or something's going on in their life, and they feel comfortable enough to share those things with you, then you're being a good leader. I think a lot of times, and you kind of said it, you focus on what needs to get done in that bottom line. However, if you're not taking into account someone's past experiences that they're bringing to the table, good, bad, or indifferent, you're not taking into how someone talks or listens or really dives into that information, you're then not having the conversations you need to have in a way that's going to be best for everyone. So the great leaders that I've worked with all are comfortable with getting uncomfortable and comfortable enough going, hey, we need to have a difficult conversation. But to pivot that, I think it's just as important to identify how to have those difficult conversations. If I was just talking with someone in the military about how they're having leadership conversations, and they were having 2 people within a team. One's a high performer, amazing at the job, delivers every time, and is setting up everyone under him for success and teaching them everything. And they can literally run without him being there. Then you had the other leader who barking orders, not delivering things. She's not delivering the expectations. And what that person who had to bring everyone together was doing was, okay, I'm going to put everyone into the room. I'm going to say, hey, you guys got to get away from your desk. You can't be at your desk all day, or this and that. And the one guy's never at his desk, and the girl's always at her desk and never goes down to the staff. But now you're kind of pointing fingers at everyone. And the person that leader was looking at was the high performer, who now, due to body language, you're pointing out as the one who's not performing. And you're not having the real conversation. And I said to them, well, why do you think you're not getting results? And they're like, I don't know. And I go, because you're not having the hard conversation with the person that's not delivering. They're walking out of the meeting and going, oh, great. Like, they're reading the body language.
She's also not giving them autonomy. She's not giving them the space and the psychological safety for them to ask questions and stretch and fail. And I think the two, I love this example that you use, because I tell a similar story. When you take a top performer and you don't ask them why they want to go into leadership, but you put them into leadership, they expect their team to do what they did. And many people can't do what they did. They don't understand how they did it. And so you create this chasm of, why can't you do it like I did it? I was amazing. Why can't you be amazing? You report to me. But they're not meeting their people where they are. They're not lifting them up. They're not saying it's okay if we make mistakes and we're going to learn from it. And I think that's such an important piece to demonstrate between the two leadership styles. The woman that you talked about, I imagine she managed up very well, and people didn't know that her team was suffering. And that's the danger when you start creating this toxic culture by putting the wrong people in these roles. You can create quite a mess.
And the other part to that too is, and you kind of touched upon it, is no one's going to that leader, whether it's a female or not, but in this example it is, and going, hey, I'm looking for this. This was my expectation. I didn't really receive it. And I've kind of brought it up to you twice now. And each time you haven't delivered it the way I've then told you to do it, or what my expectations are. Why do you think you're doing it this way and not meeting my expectations? And having that transparent conversation. And that was, in that example, what I told that individual he really needed to have with her is, don't approach it as a combative conversation. You're not delivering, because the other ways he's done it hasn't worked. But hey, approach it as, I'm noticing we're not meeting certain marks and where my expectations are. Why do you think you're struggling with it? How can I support you? And the second you flip the script, now you've opened the conversation to say, okay, this is what I need. I really don't understand this process or this, software system. Okay, now I could teach you because I know where your gap is. And then you can deliver. I've taught you a new skill set. You can then perform downwards, like we were talking about, better, and actually teach those people under you what they need to know, because now you know it.
Yeah. So you offer a whole lot of things. You have quite an incredible website with a whole bunch of stuff. Will you share a little bit about what you offer to your clients right now?
Yes. So inside my consulting and speaking division, I do a lot of talks on, I recently did a TEDx talk on defeating your biggest enemy, you, how we can all get in our own ways during moments of opportunity or struggle. So I do a lot of talks on that, personal branding and how that flows into your personal life and professional life, career development talks and team bonding activities. And then also talks within the world of podcasting on how we can leverage podcasting so we all can benefit and build our communities. And then within the consulting space, a lot of those conversations spill in, but I also do a lot of consulting within every aspect of podcasting. So if someone wants to start their podcast and they don't know all the directions or systems to use or how to set it up for success, I really work with them on every step on that. If they've already have a podcast, but they want to make sure they're optimizing it best, I'll go and do an audit of their show for them and suggest suggestions on implementation or strategies they can be implementing, and then helping individuals find the right podcast to either get on or host, find the right guest to really have those in-depth conversations with them.
Yeah. I think that's important too. I think a lot of people in their early podcasting journey are very non-discriminating when it comes to a show. Oh, you want me on your podcast? And then you find out you're on like a cooking podcast and you talk about business or, spa, and you really do want to align to the appropriate audience. So be a little more discriminating when you go on shows. I think that's a good hot take. You also have a community. So what do you do in the community?
So my community, it's really about fostering relationships. So we'll do events or Zoom calls and really just give people a chance to get to know each other and pick each other's brains, especially for younger professionals as well as professionals newer in their business, right? Hey, I just started my business and I'm within a 1 to 5 year time gap, and I'm a solo entrepreneur. Like, I went out last night for a holiday party because there were 5 business owners in my area who are all solo entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And we were in a chat and I was like, they're like, well, you know, all these companies, people we're talking to get holidays parties. I'm like, why can't we? Yeah. Let's get a group of solo entrepreneurs together and throw ourselves a holiday party.
You know, I gotta say, I was just with some friends last night who I've had for a long time on LinkedIn, and we met for the first time. And it was so battery charging and so fulfilling. And I recommend it to every solopreneur out there because it is isolating and lonely, and it's so good to test yourself, to practice your pitch, to talk about what it is you do. So I have to imagine it gave you a little full heart afterwards.
Oh, for sure. And that's the thing too. LinkedIn is amazing, and I have clients all over the world, and the amount of people I haven't met for a while, and then they're like, hey, if you fly out here and you're near this geographical area, like, come meet us. And I end up following through with that, and I get to meet them in person. And I'm like, oh my God, I've gotten to know you in such a different light now too, because it's in person. It's more relaxed. You know, we're talking about things we might not talk about in a meeting where we only have 45 minutes to get X, Y, and Z done.
That's right. I love that. So what's next for you?
That's an interesting question due to the fact there's a lot of things I feel like in the past year in 2023 that we're not on the bucket list for 2023 or on the bucket list for the business at all, like a TEDx talk, you know? But that occurred. I think what's next for me is really the podcast, and where it is in its space right now is growing continuously. And I love the audiences and the guests we have on who've given the guests the platform to share their journeys. But I'm really going to be focusing on growing the consulting side and my speaking, and really giving people the tool sets they need to feel comfortable to have those uncomfortable conversations, get out of their own way too sometimes, right? We all get in our own way, as well as like really understand what podcasting can really be like from a host perspective or a guest perspective, and fall in love with it as much as you and I love it.
Yeah, I really do love it. Because I get to interview people like you. So what inspires you?
Making an impact in someone's life. As long as I know in some way I've made an impact, and I don't even have to know how I've made the impact. But as long as I know something small every day I've done has impacted someone in a positive light, I'm good. So even on the days I struggle, I try to remind myself what my purpose is every day. And I think everyone can identify what their purpose is, and it can change. But sometimes we have to set that for ourselves and go, okay, what are the goalposts we can meet in that? How can I set myself up to know that even in the days I'm really shut down, my battery's really low, I can go, oh, I've done this today.
Yeah. It's important to look back on those successes. I agree. And what would you like your legacy to be?
It kind of plays into what I just said, but knowing when people look back at what I've done, knowing that I've made their life a little better, whether it's like just laughing at my own stories, right? You listen to it and you're like, well, that's kind of crazy. I never thought of that, or experiences, or going, wow, I never thought of something that way. And I actually have had people come up to me who've listened to the show, or I've had conversations on the street in my neighborhood, and they'll come up to me the next time I see them, and they're like, you know, you really got me thinking, and now I'm actually doing this with my business, where you challenge me in a way to think. And I'm like, that's all that matters. If I've done that and people look back on my legacy and go, she's making a difference in some stride, she's made an impact in how I thought or viewed something, then I'm good.
I think the best solopreneurs and entrepreneurs lead with their heart. And I think that's evident that that's what you're doing. And for those of us that are doing that, it certainly makes the work much more rewarding. So I think you're on your way with your legacy. So good job. So Olivia, how do people find you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn at Olivia Atkin. You can find the business on LinkedIn at Achieving Success LLC. I respond to both messages all the time, as well as my email, olivia.atkin@achieving-success.com. I answer every single email that comes through. So if you do it, I will email you back.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show and being such a great guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe to the YouTube channel or give a 5-star review over at Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Everyone, thanks for joining us on this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. Take care of yourselves. Thanks, Olivia. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. If you liked what you heard, please consider leaving a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would be ever so grateful. I hope you found it useful. Have a wonderful day.